Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, in our ongoing study on Nature and Values by Edgar Sheffield Brightman, published in 1945. We have reached the final chapter, chapter 7, and Brightman closes out with a philosophy of life, but specifically what he's going to do is he's going to give us his first principles as a guideline, because of course we form our own first principles within our own participation in the dialectic, but he does give us his position, his first principles in this lesson. So he closes out with a summary of a philosophy of life. Let's begin with block 1 and take a look at beginning with personalism. Personality includes sensate data, scientific explanation, including scientific method we know, ideal purpose, and an aspiration toward the noble or toward value. Personalism includes truth from a moderate naturalism, that modified scientific method, elevated existence within a society of persons, and sustainment of a loving God. Humanity is in need of a philosophy of life based on the convictions concerning values and convictions concerning personality. It is indispensable to human life. So under this philosophy of life, we need to approach it with rational criticism, says Brightman. It must be a truth-seeking philosophy. It must realistically take all facts into account. Hegel stated that man's beliefs are the source of his activity. Brightman agrees with this. And, of course, his summary statement, practical decision arises from theoretical purpose. And we know that to be true because we know that the hypothetical systematic model is followed by practical positing. So we understand his statement there. And that takes us on to note 3, the theory of personalism and a concrete philosophy of life equals entrance into the dialectic of realization. We seek to act in harmony with the real. Purpose is the essence of a philosophy of life. And it gives us the notion of a labor theory of value, and that means that without labor there is no realization of value. Without the labor of dialectic there is no realization of value. Human existence is in a conflict of values, and within the human spirit we find testimony to divine spirit. And any philosophy of life will posit that God is one. It will emphasize harmony and unification. And we know that that includes for Brightman a unity in self-identity, because we know that the positing is directed towards self-identity. But in this last chapter, Brightman actually goes out on a limb and puts his own convictions on the line. I think it's a good thing to do. An author sometimes doesn't take that risk. He actually gives us his first principles. So I think it's great that he actually takes that leap and offers his first principles in block 2 as the 12 first principles of personalism. They are theoretical, the practical, and the principles concerning realization. Under the theoretical, there is a respect for personality, loving others for what they may be. There is self-respect, longing for the best for one's self, and a respect for other human beings within a cooperative society. Those 3 principles inform our hypothetical sign model. They inform the hypothetical. Now, under practical positing, there are 4 additional principles that shape practical positing, the realm of the real. The principle of agape, a desire for the well-being of others. Persons are the only profit, our guide for the use of money. Respect toward divine personality, respecting God for his goodness. And the principle of reasonable love, which shapes our understanding, our worship, and our service. And then key, there is a principle for the need for understanding to reach that cooperative maturity and to reach self-identity. So that gives us 4 principles for practical positing in the realm of positing. So those 7 principles take us, it's actually 8, isn't it? Let's see. It's 8. Those 8 principles actually take us to the principles for the dialectic of realization, and we take on an additional 4 for a total of 12 principles for personalism according to Brightman. So 9th, there's a need for gathering and worship, for contemplation, for revelation, for communion, and for fruition. 10th, there is the fellowship in agape self-giving, where we share our experience within divine personality. Then there's the imperative to bring a new heaven and a new earth into realization as a social unity, and there's a need to sustain our perspective toward the highest values possible within kingdom. We must sustain our conviction. We must sustain our perspective of conviction. So he gives us his 12 principles of personalism, and that takes us on to block 3, where personalism plus the first principles equal for Brightman the activity of divine personality in actuality. We interpret nature as the realm of divine activity. So under action of divine personality, God is presence, he is power, he is purpose. As presence, he is companion with humanity, sustainer of existence, source of transcendence, never wholly absent. As power, God is soul transformation, the power of eschatological purpose, and the sufficiency for meeting all of humanity's needs. And the source of the creation of new life. Under purpose, it is a purpose defined by New Testament principles. It is reasonable love. It is building of noble personality. It is creating the possibilities of the development of value. That defines the action of divine personality, but there's also that creation of divine possibilities within nature that we take up. God is revealed through nature. The frame of nature is God's work. God directs phenomena. Nature is immanent in God, not the other way around. God is not immanent in nature. Nature is immanent in God. God opens up possibilities of value within nature. He opens up the phenomena that lead us to possibilities of value. That reaches the world of spirit. We have a sacramental view of nature. Nature offers us Christological signs of grace. Nature was instituted by Christ according to John's Gospel. Within nature we express the graces of spiritual humanity. That brings us to the definition of substance within Brightman's personalism. The only substance of nature is the divine personality. The essence of spirit is logos and agape. Nature is the realm of order, system, and purpose, and spiritual liberty is only realized through community, says Brightman. Spiritual liberty has passed and continues to pass through 3 levels. Old Testament materialism, where divine favor equaled prosperity and health. Exodus deliverance, where we reach freedom from materialism. And then New Covenant, life according to the values of the Sermon on the Mount, which we learn from Brightman directs the realm of the real, the realm of positing. That's the revelatory content that informs the realm of positing. It is the Sermon on the Mount. So in this final chapter, Brightman takes the risk of giving us his own specific first principles as a guideline. We certainly define our own categories. We discover our own concepts or principles. But Brightman took the risk here of closing out the volume with actually giving us his 12 first principles for personalism, which I think is a great thing for an author to do. I think he did a great job in after immediately refining that overall composite, he gives us a guideline of his first principles. So I think it's a tremendous way to finish out the manuscript. And for us, it has been a great monograph to follow that trilogy of Bound that we just finished, of metaphysics, ethics, and theism. We followed that trilogy with this monograph on personalism as phenomenology. And a perfect way to close it out is with this great specific teaching, to actually close it out with a real content for the composite form that we just looked at in our previous lesson. To that composite form, we now have specific content in Block 2. The 12 first principles give us the specific content to plug into that composite model we just discussed. So he closes out his manuscript with form and content. The 3 chapters that fine-tuned form, and then this final chapter that gave us the content to fit within that composite in our previous lesson. So that wraps up Nature and Values by Edgar Sheffield Brightman, and we have closed out with specific content to insert in that composite model we just discussed in the previous lesson. You could probably fit these in anywhere within the dialectic of that composite model, but of course it must inform realization, so it kind of shows up specifically in that realm of positing as a transition into praxis. Actually, phronesis and practice. Practical wisdom of positing, and then the praxis of realization, which is a dialectic of translating ideals into values, or a dialectic of interaction with other free selves seeking self-identity. That's the way that Brightman puts it. So these principles would probably be inserted right there between the hypothetical and the practical. It's kind of a hinge point between the hypothetical and the practical, leading into praxis. And of course, they influence return moment as well, and the refinement of conviction or self-identity. But that takes us to the end of the book. That wraps up pages 138 to 166 on a practical philosophy of life.